Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try, you still struggle to understand a woman's emotions and behavior? Have you ever faced moments when a simple conversation turns into an unexpected conflict? Or perhaps you felt that no matter how much love and dedication you offer, something seems to be missing. If you've experienced this, know that you're not alone. And here's an uncomfortable but necessary truth for a better life. You understanding women's weaknesses is not about controlling them. It's about understanding how they shape relationships and thus acting wisely. As Epictetus said, circumstances do not make a man, they only reveal him to himself. In the same way, the challenges in a relationship don't define a woman's character, but reveal what she fears, desires, and hides. In this video, you'll discover the 10 most common emotional and psychological weaknesses in women. Not to judge them, but to become a more prepared, patient, and emotionally strong man. To have a healthier and longer-lasting relationship, or even to start a relationship knowing the factors that can help or hinder you with your partner. And why does this matter? Because in every relationship, you need to cultivate mental clarity and emotional resilience, both to deal with female expectations and to maintain control in the face of conflict. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to share practical strategies based on Stoic philosophy to turn these weaknesses into opportunities to strengthen relationships, whether you're single or married. And before we go any further, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, because the next few lessons could completely change your perspective on relationships and self-knowledge. Top 1. The emotional need for validation and attention. Have you ever noticed how many women seek praise, approval, or recognition even when they're already sure of themselves? This is no coincidence. It's a reflection of a deep emotional need, a desire to be seen, heard, and valued. But here's the key that few understand. This search for validation isn't just about ego, it's about emotional security. For many women, their partner's attention acts as a mirror that reflects their value and importance. Marco Aurelio teaches us, remember that the power to judge belongs to you. Don't let others affect you. But what happens when this wisdom isn't applied? Insecurity arises, and to fill this void, some women may create emotional tests, demanding proof of love or constant attention. How should a Stoic man react? Practice calm observation. Instead of responding impulsively to frequent requests for validation, ask yourself, is this about me or about her insecurity? Be firm and present. Showing attention in a balanced and consistent way creates emotional stability, but without feeding dependencies. 3. Offer authentic words and gestures. Instead of empty compliments, recognize genuine characteristics and attitudes that really deserve appreciation. A practical example. Imagine that your partner asks, "Do you still think I'm beautiful?" An impulsive man might respond with irritation or even sarcasm, but the Stoic man sees beyond the words and understands that this question may hide inner insecurities. Answer with truth and purpose. I've always admired your beauty, but it's your strength and character that impress me every day. This kind of response not only satisfies the emotional need, but also reinforces deeper values in the relationship. Now think, how do you deal with situations where your attention is constantly required? Comment below and share your experience. Top 2. The fear of loneliness and its impact on decisions. Have you ever noticed how many women stay in unhappy relationships or accept situations that clearly don't satisfy them? This is because the fear of loneliness can be scarier than the discomfort of a bad relationship. Epictetus said, "It is not things that disturb us, but the interpretation we make of them." For some women, being alone can be interpreted as failure or rejection. This fear, often unconscious, drives decisions based on need rather than choice. But what does this mean for you? If you don't understand this emotional weakness, it could end. 1. Being manipulated by emotional promises or guilt. 2. Accepting forced compromises to avoid conflict. 3. Losing the emotional leadership needed to guide the relationship. How should a Stoic man react? 1. By practicing empathy without giving up logic. Instead of judging, acknowledge the fear behind the behavior and treat it with patience. 2. Offering emotional stability but not dependence. Show that you are there for her by choice, not necessity. This creates mutual respect. 3. Encouraging self-development. Women who cultivate their own emotional independence tend to make more balanced and less impulsive decisions. Practical example: suppose your partner starts expressing fear that you will pull away or leave her. An ordinary man might interpret this as jealousy or exaggerated insecurity. The Stoic, on the other hand, sees beyond the surface. Stoic response: I understand why you feel that way, but I want you to know that my presence here is not based on fear of losing you, but on the admiration I have for who you are. This approach strengthens the relationship without fueling emotional dependencies. Now think, have you ever been in a situation where you had to deal with the fear of loneliness in a relationship? Leave your comment below. Top 3. The search for emotional security and stability. If there's one thing that drives most women, it's the desire for emotional security. It's not just about physical or financial protection, but a space where they can feel understood, welcomed, and above all, safe to be who they really are. But here's the problem. This need can often turn into anxiety or excessive control. A woman who fears emotional instability can interpret silence as disinterest or mood swings as signs of withdrawal. Marco Aurelio reminds us, if you are distressed by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimation of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any time. When a woman feels that her emotional stability is threatened, her mind creates imaginary stories, scenarios of abandonment, betrayal, or rejection. And this directly affects the relationship. The role of the Stoic man here is to maintain emotional firmness. A Stoic is not cold or distant. He is the anchor that keeps the balance in the middle of the storm. He listens, but doesn't allow himself to be swept away by emotional turbulence. He responds calmly, not impulsively. Think about it. A woman who finds emotional stability in you tends to lower her defenses. But if you react with impatience or indifference, you reinforce the fears she already carries. True Stoic strength lies not in avoiding emotions, but in dealing with them. And that starts with presence, consistency, and clarity. Top 4. The difficulty of dealing with rejection and criticism. Few things destabilize a woman as much as feeling rejected or criticized. This is because deep down, many women associate criticism with a lack of love or acceptance. Whether it's a comment about appearance, choices, or behavior, criticism can be interpreted as a personal attack, even if that wasn't the intention. And this is where many men go wrong. They try to solve the situation with logic, when in fact the problem is emotional. Seneca said, "What matters is not what happens, but how you react to it." And that reaction is what defines everything. When a woman feels rejected, her reaction can come in the form of silence, tears, or emotional outbursts. But the real root of the problem lies in the fear of not being enough, not being pretty enough, interesting enough, or loved enough. The Stoic man, however, sees beyond words and reactions. He understands that criticism often awakens old wounds and deep insecurities. That's why he doesn't react with anger or impatience, but with understanding and firmness. The secret lies in communication. A man who masters his emotions is able to correct, guide, and even disagree without generating resentment. He praises before pointing out a mistake and seeks to build rather than destroy. Imagine, for example, a discussion about a choice she has made. The impulsive man points out the mistake without a filter, while the Stoic chooses his words wisely, showing support while correcting. In the end, what matters is not avoiding criticism, but learning to turn it into opportunities for growth, both for her and for the relationship. Top 5. The influence of emotions on choices. Have you noticed how emotions can be decisive in women's choices? They often make decisions based on what they feel at the moment, whether it's joy, insecurity, or fear. And this is not a defect, but a natural characteristic. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to what happens that matters." In the case of women, emotional reactions often guide actions. This explains why a pleasant conversation can create immediate closeness, while a tense moment can lead to sudden withdrawal. But here's the point that few men understand. These fluctuating emotions are not weakness. They are an expression of sensitivity. And when properly understood, they can strengthen the relationship instead of damaging it. The Stoic man, instead of being swept away by these emotional tides, stands like a steady beacon, stable and predictable. He listens without judging, responds without reacting, and leads without dominating. What's the secret? The key is to balance logic with empathy. If a woman gets emotional about a problem, the Stoic doesn't try to correct her emotion. Instead, he validates the feeling but offers a rational perspective. For example, if she's anxious about something that might not even happen, the Stoic doesn't just say, "Relax." He asks, "What can we do now to avoid it?" In this way, he turns fear into action. In the end, feminine emotions are not the enemy of reason. They are just different ways of connecting with the world. And the wise man uses this understanding to create confidence and stability. Top 6. Constantly comparing yourself to other women. Have you ever noticed how many women compare themselves all the time, whether with friends, co-workers, or even strangers on social media? This behavior is so common that for some it has become automatic. But here's the truth that few see. These comparisons rarely have anything to do with others. They reveal internal insecurities and silent fears. Marcus Aurelius warns us, "Don't waste what you have by wishing for what you don't have." And yet, we live in a world where image is everything. Comparisons don't only happen in physical appearance, but also in professional success, relationships, and even in the way life is portrayed online. This creates a dangerous cycle of self-criticism and dissatisfaction. A woman who feels inferior may seek external validation, becoming emotionally vulnerable. Or she may mask her insecurity with arrogance, creating conflict in relationships. The Stoic man needs to see beyond appearances. He understands that behind the comparison lies a legitimate desire to be valued and recognized. And instead of feeding insecurities, he cultivates admiration for the deepest values and qualities. How to deal with this? The Stoic does not criticize the comparison, but redirects it. He praises real attitudes and achievements, not just beauty or status. He reinforces the value of what is authentic, helping you see yourself more clearly and less judgmentally. More than that, he leads by example, showing that true confidence comes from what you build internally, not from what others see externally. Now stop and reflect. Have you ever dealt with this situation? How did you react? Top 7. Fear of aging and losing attractiveness. Have you ever noticed how the passing of time can become an invisible enemy for many women? From an early age, they are conditioned to associate their self-esteem with physical appearance. And as the years go by, the fear of losing what for them is a symbol of value and power. Youth arises. Seneca reminds us, time discovers the truth. But in modern society, this truth is often distorted. Advertisements, social networks, and unrealistic standards create the illusion that beauty and youth are the pillars of female identity. And when these pillars begin to weaken, fear sets in. This fear is not just superficial, it touches on deep insecurities, causing many women to seek constant reassurance or resort to endless comparisons. Some may even project this anxiety into the relationship, testing their partner's interest or creating conflicts to measure their importance. The Stoic man, however, acts as a mirror of security. He acknowledges her fear, but he doesn't feed it. Instead, he values what time cannot erase: character, wisdom, and genuine connection. How to respond? When she expresses insecurities about getting older, the Stoic doesn't minimize the feeling, but he doesn't amplify it either. He responds with respect and depth, highlighting what really matters. Imagine a conversation in which she expresses fear of losing physical attraction. The wise man doesn't just say, "You look beautiful." He goes further and says, "Your essence is what attracts me every day, and it only gets better with time." This type of response creates emotional security and strengthens the relationship. Think about it. Have you ever seen the impact of this fear on someone close to you? How did you deal with it? Top 8. The tendency to over-expect in relationships. Why do so many women get frustrated in relationships? The answer often lies in the unrealistic expectations they create, both about their partner and about the idea of love itself. From an early age, women are influenced by movies, novels, and social media, where relationships seem perfect and full of magical moments. But reality rarely matches this ideal. As Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be prepared to be ridiculed, hated, and misunderstood. And this applies to relationships as well. When a woman idealizes her partner or expects perfection, frustration becomes inevitable. Small flaws are magnified. Natural differences become insoluble problems. The Stoic man, however, understands the danger of these expectations. He does not allow himself to be imprisoned by impossible demands. Instead, he is clear about his intentions, values, and limits. He demonstrates love and respect, but also teaches by example that healthy relationships are built on reality, not fantasy. What to do? When she expresses disappointment, the Stoic listens and validates her feelings, but also invites her to reflect on what is truly essential. If she complains that you don't surprise her with romantic surprises like the couples on Instagram, the wise man doesn't respond with irritation. He says, "I may not be the man in the movies, but I am the man who will be there when you need me. I'd rather build something solid than live on appearances." This response not only dismantles unrealistic expectations, but also creates admiration and respect. Now think about it. Have you ever faced unrealistic expectations in a relationship? How did you deal with it? Top 9. Emotional dependence disguised as independence. We live in a time where the word independence is exalted, especially among women. They are encouraged to be strong, self-sufficient, and not need anyone. But behind this facade of independence, many hide a silent fear of being vulnerable. Marcus Aurelius said, "What is within your power? Your mind and your actions." However, what happens when independence is used as a shield? It can become an emotional armor, preventing genuine connections and creating invisible barriers. On the outside, a woman appears unshakable. On the inside, she struggles with insecurities and desires for emotional support that she is afraid to admit. The Stoic man sees beyond this mask. He recognizes apparent strength, but also understands that true independence is not the absence of need, but the balance between being autonomous and at the same time knowing how to trust. How to deal with this? When she insists that she doesn't need anyone, the Stoic respects this illusion, but doesn't reinforce it. He offers support without invading and presence without suffocating. If she tries to handle everything on her own, he doesn't compete for space. Instead, he says, "I know you can handle this on your own, but I want you to know that you don't have to do it all alone." I'm here because I want to be, not because you need to be. This type of attitude disarms defenses and creates an environment where vulnerability is seen as strength, not weakness. Now stop and think. Have you ever met someone who hid their need for support behind an image of independence? Top 10. The oscillation between love and resentment. Why can a woman show intense love one moment and the next seem distant or resentful? This emotional cycle, although confusing to many men, is more common than it seems. The root of this behavior lies in the contradictory emotions that arise when emotional expectations are not met. The desire for deep connection, combined with unresolved fears and insecurities, creates an invisible interplay between closeness and distance. Epictetus reminds us, if someone acts against you, it is not the act itself that hurts you, but your perception of it. And that perception is constantly changing. A misinterpreted gesture, a mistimed word, or a lack of emotional validation can turn affection into hurt almost instantly. How does a Stoic man deal with this? He does not allow himself to be swept away by the emotional current. Instead, he stands firm as a pillar, observing without reacting impulsively. When love turns to resentment, he does not respond with defensiveness or indifference, but with clarity and patience. What is the right approach? If she shows frustration or withdraws, the Stoic asks, "What happened to make you feel this way?" This simple question creates space for dialogue rather than confrontation. Rather than looking for someone to blame, the wise man seeks understanding. Deep down, the oscillation between love and resentment is a silent request for emotional balance. A man who understands this builds bridges, while others build walls. He leads emotionally without losing his essence. Now think about it. How do you react when you face these oscillations in a relationship? Do you stay calm, or do you get carried away by emotion? We've come to the end of this deep dive into the emotional weaknesses of women that every man needs to know. But before I wrap up, I need to make something clear. What you've heard here is not about control or manipulation. It's about understanding and wisdom. A man who seeks to live wisely doesn't try to change others. He dedicates himself to mastering his own emotions, becoming a point of balance in the face of emotional storms. This approach inspires respect and trust, creating an environment where emotional connection becomes deeper and more authentic. Understanding women's emotions doesn't make you superior. It makes you more aware. It makes you a man who can act with emotional intelligence, patience, and determination, even in the most challenging moments. If you've paid attention to every point we've discussed, you've probably noticed something very important. These weaknesses are not flaws. They are reflections of universal fears and desires that affect men and women in different ways. A woman who seeks emotional validation or fears loneliness is not being weak. She is revealing vulnerabilities that we all share on some level. And herein lies the true test of a Stoic man, being able to offer support without losing his own stability. A man guided by Stoic wisdom does not allow himself to be dominated by impulsive reactions. He acts as an emotional pillar, maintaining his steadfastness even when everything around him seems to be falling apart. He understands that emotional leadership is not imposed, but earned by example. The Stoic is the one who transforms conflicts into opportunities for growth and insecurities into bridges to trust. He does not shy away from feminine emotions. He faces them with courage and poise, because he knows that only in this way can he build relationships that will withstand time and adversity. Now you know what many men ignore, but knowledge without practice is useless. That is why I challenge you to put these teachings into practice. When a moment of tension or insecurity arises, observe your reaction. Will you act impulsively or calmly? Will you fuel chaos or be the point of balance? The decision is yours. And this decision doesn't just affect your relationship, it affects who you're becoming as a man. If you've made it this far, it already shows that you're seeking growth and wisdom, and this pursuit is what separates ordinary men from extraordinary men. Now I want to hear from you. Which of the points discussed today caught your attention the most? Have you ever faced situations like the ones we talked about? How did you react? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Your story may inspire other men who are going through the same challenges. And if this video brought you value, don't forget to like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue receiving content about Stoic wisdom and how to apply it in practical life.